Call this meeting to order at noon. Stand for Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alrighty, quick roll call. Mr. Byer is excused. Ms. Ensley? Mr. Gephardt? Here. Mr. Hall? Here. Mr. Hopkins? Here. Ms. Howland? Here. Ms. Powell? Here. Mr. Riesendahl? Here. And then Mr. Ringo is present. At this time, we will open the podium to public comments. Any citizens wishing to speak on agenda or non-agenda items will be allowed a maximum of 4 minutes to address their concerns. This is the only time during the meeting you will be allowed to address the DDA. Please state your name and address for the record if you like. Any public comments? Seeing no one volunteer, we will move along. Conflict of interest and ex parte communication inquiry. Anything to discuss?
Well, whether any board members have had contact with any of the applicants in front of the board today.
Many of us know them.
I am. You know. Who are they? I know Dwayne, I don't know this other guy.
Well, I guess the question is, have you had any contact with him, and would that color your impressions or your vote on the projects that are being proposed today?
I would speak for myself. As a DDA member, I'm very supportive. As a fellow business owner in a similar business, I will be excusing myself as we adjourn to go to the Brownfield development, and I will hand the gavel over to Mr. Hopkins. Anyone else? All right, has everyone had a chance to review the agenda? I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda would include the motion for the minutes on February 25th. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to review. To accept and file their financial report. Again, hopefully everyone has had a chance to review. And a motion to dissolve the bike rack committee as they have met their purpose. Discussion on that.
Bike racks are appearing. I think I have 3 out of 5 or 6 that showed up yesterday, so we can start scheduling installs.
I think the next step is for the DPW to walk around, probably with you, and see the sites, and then
Maybe we all do it on one afternoon.
there's a certain amount of money that has to be used for the installation costs, whatnot. So.
I think we had that on. We don't have the. Smaller pot installation.
We have $1,000 allocated for it.
Yep. In next year's budget, of course, we may have enough money left over with this year's budget to do it, but just to be safe, I allocated it for next year as well.
Okay. Any comments on the minutes from last meeting as well?
Yeah. Under where they was talking about motion to recommend the city council that DDA purchase the Harding City Springs Park sign. It shows that Hopkins would rather see a directional sign placed near the White Pine Trail. I think that was not meaning instead of the Heart of Cedar Springs sign. That was due to the fact that Councilman Powell recommended having one at both spots.
To clarify that you wanted one at both locations?
No, I did not want one at both. That's where he's saying I'd rather have a directional sign over by the White Pine Trail versus 2 Heart of Cedar Springs signs. And another one, which is most likely a typo when we were talking about the adopt-a-pots, and I said that
Where? E? 7E?
Yes. Like I said, it's by just a typo.
Months.
Yeah, months instead of moths. Those are the only 2 things I've seen.
Anything else, guys? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion for the consent agenda with the aforementioned adjustments?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda with changes presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll go on to number 7, a motion to move into the Brownfield redevelopment meeting.
Mr. Wrangler, if I could interject here, we do have 2 of our DPW workers present, and they would be willing to answer questions regarding 8B. I believe we had some questions or concerns last time about what the board wanted. So if you and the board would be willing to move to that out of place, we would appreciate that.
Everyone all right with that? All right, we're looking at 8D then, looking for a motion to recommend to City Council that the DDA purchase the double-sided parking signs, and I guess clarification we're looking for?
Yeah, we just like to run over some things.
Okay. Go ahead, pop right up, go ahead, or you can do it from there, so go ahead.
We were looking at the parking signs and the wayfinding signs for downtown, and came up with a couple different ideas from, you guys had proposed some signs from the last meeting, and that you should be included in your agendas. But one of them was this one here. This here would mount on our black light pole, which is kind of nice because now you've got a sign that's lit at night. The nice thing about this is they're both sided too, so if you were on the east side of Muskegon, you could be coming from the east, have the sign from that way, and you would also be able to see it from the west side of Muskegon and vice versa, so it gives you a little more visibility. Cost on that sign, I had just scribbled on there, for the 3 of them is $202.50 plus labor.
Page 47, I believe, in our packet.
Yeah, and then I ran some numbers just to see where we would be with labor and everything for one set of 3 signs was approximately $240.50. The other option that you guys were kind of looking at was the white sign, this one here, which still may work somewhere in the community, but if you wanted to do that at the Muskegon Street intersection, it's total cost on that one's $248.50, and that's because we have to use posts and other things. I mean,
Would that be possible to also mount to an existing?
not this one here. This is way too heavy to try to put on our light poles, catches wind and other things, and there's just no good bracket that they make to actually mount it. Where these are kind of designed to be mounted that way. And that's kind of with everything we're
Maybe
doing.
right side up, actually.
Just
I've been told that by people in their right mind.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at it from the backside, but, yeah, actually, we figured this one a lot for how it would look. We thought it'd be clean and kind of flow with everything, with what's going on
Yeah,
downtown.
this looks, I think, very similar to one of the alternates that the committee actually proposed to, which was,
This one, red.
that was red, yeah.
Yeah, but this is just separate signs, and the nice thing is if you add something, it's not a new sign.
Right.
You can
It
replace
should,
one if you need to.
yeah, or replace it, or however it works.
So did you have a chance to review all the locations of the committee recommendation, and would we be able to do those in all those locations?
I did review them, but what I'm gonna have to do, because when I get to looking at this, I kinda gotta handle things on a case-by-case basis instead of trying to stretch out the whole thing. So if we can get the wayfinding signs and the parking signs, we'll go on to the next on the list, which I don't remember what it was. And when I'm dealing with sign companies, when I'm talking about 7 different signs, it gets pretty confusing. So if I can just kind of do it step by step, a lot easier to handle, a lot easier to manage, and a lot easier to get done. So we'll just kind of work down the list. As far as the locations, I didn't see issues with. There's already signs in some of those locations. On the museum sign, it's blocked by another sign at the intersection of 2nd Street. You may go just simply take that sign and put it on the other side of 2nd Street. One of the other ones I know at the museum was by the crosswalk, which was already one existing. You would just want to change that to something more that resembled the rest of the signs in the city, but
There was one there, it used to be consistent.
yeah, but if we can just kind of go case by case, we'll stop in from time to time when we're working on it and talk to you guys, but it gets pretty difficult to manage the whole list at one time.
In terms of, I guess my question was more in terms of, we had 10 Well, 8, I think, if we
Yep.
just include the wayfaring signs, because you have the 2 of them are welcome signs. But all of those 8, or their existing poles that we might be able to use that type of.
Haven't got that far into it. I want to handle this first, and get the wayfaring signs done. And then we'll, like I said, as the locations, your list was listed on the side, maybe it might be.
Well, there was a list and there was a map that had
Right.
a list with them on the side.
Right. I took like the first one, we'll just kind of work down your list, kind of. And it's virtually impossible for me to handle this size list and say we're going to do all these signs in this stretched out area. I need to go almost case by case. We're going to handle this one, we're going to handle this one, we're going to handle this one.
And the dilemma that's presented though is if we go with that sign and now suddenly run into a space where there's no pole,
Well, that would be,
that's my concern.
this would go, or be an option. Another option would be they have different style black poles that you could use with that style sign. So, I think it was Howard City, wasn't it, Mike, that had a very similar design on a freestanding pole. And you use the same bracket. And
But then we would be incurring an additional pole.
pole cost, which you're going to have a post cost on it anyhow. For 3 signs versus 1 sign, the single sign's $8 more. So, I don't know what the black, we would use a black, it's like a black or decorative post, and just a regular galvanized side post. It does look better. I mean, it presents a much cleaner, nicer look than just a sign on a sign.
The idea was to be very consistent with
Yeah.
what so these all look alike and are identifiable as wayfaring signs.
Yeah, this would kind of make everything flow together, you know. I think it's nice extremely nice from the standpoint that you could do 2 sides. So you can almost mark 2 sides of an intersection with one.
Well, there's significant savings there is some of the proposals were for 2-sided signs, and it would save us on the purchase of the extra signs.
Yeah, and I kind of like to keep with this as we, like you guys are talking, as we go through it, I want to keep with the same style signs. So unfortunately, I didn't really look that far ahead yet. I'm just trying to get this behind me and move on. So,
Okay. So you look just at the first couple, we had the.
yeah, I picked the wayfaring signs, and I don't know where they fell in. And there was parking signs we were kind of talking about downtown too. And Tanya's here because she
Parking
doesn't.
signs, I think, were the white one with the arrow and the key.
Yeah,
We're
okay.
trying to play off of that by having the opposite color exactly,
Yeah.
which was on page 47. 47, right. Oh, that's a new one. That's the first one. But the ones we had were the ones you just showed us.
That sign might not be in this packet, but I know it's like you're talking about.
Page 34. The original one we looked at.
And Mr. Engler, just for the minutes, I'm sure Rebecca's got it right, but we are discussing 2, a 8B and 8C at the same time.
And this was the map for the first one.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which were the wayfaring
Yeah,
signs.
which would be, we could use these for the wayfaring sign and also the business district sign. So that's kind of where that started.
So they look expensive.
Yep, and then we'll go on to your park signs and whatever would be the next one. We'll do after this.
So, Mr. LaRose, are you looking for some direction from the board
Well,
on what they want?
Yes, if they like this, I mean, what I'd like to do is get this settled so we can get these up and go on to the next step. So I mean, if you guys as a board decide if this is what you like, we'll go ahead and pursue that. Or if this is what you like, we can go ahead and pursue that.
Well, just speaking personally, I mean, obviously I like the flexibility there. You're not getting a whole new sign every time something changes and or might
Right,
something.
right.
And it's 2-sided, so you're avoiding the extra,
Right.
the printing of an extra sign if we have to go on both sides of the pole. So speaking personally, I think that sounds to check.
Yeah, I think it.
fun to ask them. Good time.
Always road.
Page 39, it says 7 posts, $27 each. Is that the black post you think?
No, those are galvanized posts, and that was for a different set of signs that we had quoted. Do you remember what?
Those are the parking signs.
What page was this, Rose?
Oh, that was the parking lot parking signs for, the different parking lots around the park.
So we're gonna just stick with standard post for those?
Yeah, we were gonna use standard on that, and that was, I think that sign was already decided on, as I remember, it was a white sign.
It wasn't the sign, it was the post. I didn't know if we're gonna go to
Yeah.
all those black. So
No, I think on, anywhere we're gonna do it on Main Street or Muskegon Street, should probably go with that little bit different post, and that allows you guys to use the same sign repeatedly.
Right.
So if those posts, the regular posts are $27 a piece, how much are the black posts?
I haven't even looked, Rose, I'm sorry, but I'll come back to that when we start moving out of the intersection and moving to different areas. Now, anywhere on Main Street, more than likely we have a light post that we can use. Yeah, so when we get on Muskegon Street, like I think you guys have Park, Morley Park, and some other things, that's where we'll have to look at using a different style.
Yeah, I think that would be good looking,
Yeah.
personally.
And we
Your
did it on,
experience, is it gonna be a drastic difference from the $27?
I mean, it might double, is what I'm kind of thinking, but I don't know. But if you guys, we did it on Google Earth, we just Googled Howard City, and kind of found that, and actually looked at it right there, you know, you could spin around and see it, and they just used the black square post that really looked nice. I think it had a little nicer top on it, you know, than just a standard top.
So in summary, then, we'd be looking at with that existing quote on page 39. Those are standard post white signs for the parking lots themselves. Everything else with the wayfaring, we would move to these street-looking signs that would be
More
double
anywhere
sided.
on Main Street or the intersection of Main and Muskegon, and use a light pole.
Anybody else have questions? Okay, so, but we don't have a quote though for all those signs.
Well-
All we do, looking at right now is the design.
Well, the quote for all your signs, including labor, and this would be, total for that is for 3 signs with everything brackets and it's $240. $240.50.
Which 3 signs are we talking about now?
That would be kind of, I think,
As an example.
right, so I took this one and took this one and kind of did an example of each. So every time we do one of these, so I mean, if you guys wanted to approve, we want to do the Muskegon Street intersection now, I think that would be with what you, I don't recall exactly what you wanted there, but for the 3 signs, it would be,
You got a cheat sheet right there next to it, the map.
so at the intersection, we had, see, we're not even showing the intersection, what do we have for 3 of there? Okay. Every time you put the 3 signs up, and this is kind of not mine, so this is kind of what you guys want to advertise, okay? So for a set of these 3 signs, it's $240.50. Every additional sign you add to that is another $50. So whatever you decided you wanted to.
Some of them were only 1 or 2 things, so
Yeah. So
they'll be a little less.
yeah, and that covers the sign bracket. It's right around $50, as I remember it, for a 2-sided sign and a wing bracket. I could be more like 60, but I'm not very ballpark, so.
Okay, so for the moment, however, if we're looking at 8B, we're looking for approval on the parking signs, which would be the white ones we looked at earlier on the standard pole.
Yeah, if you guys wanted to approve that, I can get them ordered and we can get them in.
And I think we're all, won't speak for it, but that was one we've reviewed now multiple times.
I think there was a question on that one, whether you wanted galvanized posts or standard posts.
And yeah, that was another thing that we were kind of looking at, and the price difference wasn't that big, and the galvanized posts looked nicer a lot longer.
Any thoughts?
Personally, I think you should do the galvanized, personally, or black.
black starts getting pricey because then we gotta take a green post and labor and time to paint it. You can't actually order a black street sign post, unfortunately.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you powder coat galvanized or no?
Can you what?
Can you powder coat a galvanized pipe?
I don't know that much about powder, powder coating to tell you if it would stick or not. I don't know if it'd be a problem. I know there's issues with paint sticking to galvanized.
Can you powder coat galvanized?
Everything.
Actually had a friend that wasn't powder coating business, I could ask him.
Yeah, Magnum used to do all my stuff, and I thought I saw galvanized coming in there.
You have to do a certain prep to it. I think you can. You have to etch it somehow.
It says duplex system is simply painting or powder coating steel that has been hot dip galvanized after fabrication. So yeah, we can do it.
But you're probably adding quite an expense to a.
I'm guessing $35 a post. Maybe.
And that post is galvanized, it's gonna be silver, and they might tarnish a little bit over time, but they don't look that, they always look like an aluminum post.
Turn gray.
Yeah, they don't rust, they,
Just get run over.
yep.
Do we want to keep discussing this and get additional information before deciding, or are we satisfied to move on? Entertaining a motion for the galvanized proposal.
I think we need to get it done.
Yeah, let's just do it.
Yeah.
Can I get a motion then to approve the recommendation of City Council for the purchase of these signs with the galvanized post totaling $2,965.24.
Motion, that's it.
Yep, because we'd be adding the $56.72 for the galvanized. The quote is on page 39 of your packet.
So moved.
Wait a second.
Second.
It's an expenditure, we should probably do roll call. Ms. Ensley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Ms. Holland?
Yes.
Ms. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Reesinger?
Yes.
Mr. Ringer votes yes, motion carries.
You guys have any other questions?
That's it.
Direction about what they wanted for the.
Yep. I think as far as the other signs, I assume you guys wanna talk about it or decide what you wanna do with the wayfaring signs. The sooner the better, because pretty soon we're gonna be in the cemetery and time gets extremely limited. And I'm sorry, but for you guys that don't know, this is Tanya. She does a lot of the quotes and stuff, and is starting to handle all this stuff. Kind of take it off me, so at some point you probably see more of her and less of me.
Working with Al, she's doing all the work.
Yeah. Al's a greener.
You guys want to stick around then to go immediately to 8C, or do we want to go back to the agenda and then we can just pass you along our recommendation?
Oh, okay, we can hang out a minute.
I've got 4 delivered yesterday and 2 arrived before middle of next week, so we'll have all of them on hand. And I can put that into their schedule.
Mr. Reesinger, maybe after the meeting, we can put you two in touch. You guys can just do it some other day and we'll report back to the next meeting.
Okay, so back to regular agenda.
Did you feel like you gave enough policy direction to Mr. LaRose regarding wayfaring signs?
Yeah, that was my question. We wanted to see and actually get into the wayfaring signs.
Let's do it while we're here.
Okay, then we will go to the sign committee information. Do one of you guys want to run through? You want me to just go through it?
At page
All right.
41.
This would be starting on page 41 of our packet. So the sign committee met a few weeks ago, I guess now. Looked at a couple of different options for the signs, which were attached, and they're basically a mirror image of one another, red on white and white on red. And we looked at locations, and on page 41 you can see a number of the sign locations that were proposed in writing, and if you scroll down to page 44, those are mapped out. So it'll say basically what are the items that we're pointing out and where the location would be. We also included the recommendation that the heart, we would use the symbol for heart rather than spelling it out. There were a couple of green parking signs still up, and we also recommended that those be removed and consistent with the other parking signs. So that might be something that we would have you guys take a census and help us find all of them that are out there.
Yeah, those will just come down.
So now on that list, which you see beginning on page 44, the bottom two, number 9 and number 10, those are both welcome signs, which we had previously discussed as well. We did not really put together a recommendation for a specific design on those. Another recommendation would actually do it, but that might be the next and final step. But the question here would be if we like the red on white, white on red, or the new proposal here, which is on page 46 to show the street style two-sided signs. So if anyone either had a chance to look it over, can look it over now if you have any questions on the locations and the sign designs.
Proposing personally. Cleaner. But much.
Anybody else feel otherwise? And any questions on the locations or the items that are being pointed out?
So, Mr. Ringler, considering you've indicated you don't have a design for Welcome to Cedar Springs at 9 or 10, would you like Mr. LaRose to bring back a quote for his street sign idea for the first 8? Yeah, we'll start with that. You can approve it at that point, and then I don't know if you need to reestablish the sign committee, or if you would like us to just present an option for the Welcome to Cedar Springs, and we'll present that as an option in the next meeting.
Well, the sign committee still exists, so we certainly can meet again and look at some options for that before our next meeting, if maybe wishes to do so. But otherwise, I think we'd be looking for a motion to approve those first 8 with the aforementioned design.
And ask for a quote for the next meeting.
I think we're just looking for, right now we're just approving the locations and the design, correct? We need a quote.
Yeah, we went through 1 through 8, Mike. It looks like we can use a lot of the same series signs for these. What I can do is, I mean, if it's approved today, other than the...
We're not approving the expenditure, we're just approving the design and the location.
Yeah, so if you have the design and location, that gives me the ability to go out and count, see what we're going to do. I should say her. See what we're going to do, and then I can give you the total for everything you want, now that we've got a design down. So that's really what I need to go any further with them. And then if we get that handled for the next meeting, I think one of us can come back with a Welcome to Cedar Springs kind of sign proposal. We can get something made up so you guys can look at it, maybe something resembling the Heart of Cedar Springs sign, you know, so it all kind of flows together. So that's just call the standing company, give them an idea what we're thinking, they come up with a draft, and then at least you have something to look at and decide what you might want to change or
That sounds lovely. I don't think we need a motion for that, do we?
no, I could just do that.
Do we need to document that we approve the locations and the design?
It's probably appropriate that you do that. Now, if the board wanted to reserve his prerogative. He could hold a sign committee meeting and then just contact Mr. LaRose and say, this is what we were thinking about. Otherwise, Mr. LaRose will just take our best guess of what we want to do and present that option.
Okay, so could I have a motion to approve the design for the first 8 wayfaring signs, the locations of those signs, and then a request to Mr. LaRosa to review sign options for number 9 and number 10?
Change that to this page.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
You have being here. Yeah, I'm sure one of us will be in to see you again.
Okay, we'll move back to our regular agenda, and then I would entertain a motion to move into a brownfield redevelopment meeting with Mr. Hopkins taking over the chair.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Right, completion rule or procedures now. Mr. O'Malley?
Yep, so I read some of the emails and some of the discussion that we had previously about abstentions, recusals, etc., especially in light of the fact that Mr. Ringler didn't seem to feel comfortable voting or perhaps discussing this matter that's before the board today. So I did a little research and put together a memo for you what both the bylaws for the DDA and Brownfield state, and also what the Robert Rules of Order state, both of which are authoritative over this board. So it looks like previously the board had voted on whether somebody could or should abstain. That does not appear to be the correct form for how to proceed. So it would appear that each member shall determine for themselves whether they feel comfortable abstaining or not. The board doesn't seem to have any authority whatsoever to force somebody to vote or not vote. In an instance where the board felt that one member had an interest and should not be voting, they can't force that person not to vote. The only thing that they seem to have the option to do is to attempt to hold that motion, table the motion in some way, and then refer the matter to the city council for review. So, Mr. Ringler seems to indicate that he would like to abstain in the matter, or recuse himself. I don't think he clarified. And that's just something I wanted the board to know. I'm open for any questions you might have.
You know, I would feel that the Indians probably for Mr. Reed to vote on this on his discretion. And I agree that whatever he feels he needs to do.
It's not the first time we've had a board member, Mr. Marcus did the same when we were reviewing stuff for the brewery.
Yes.
It was a similar nature. No further questions, we'll go on to item B, Sea Springs Ventures LLC Brownfield redevelopment request.
So the developer is here. I think it's a pretty straightforward request. Under the Brownfield Development Authority, the Brownfield Board, which is you guys, can recommend to the City Council that they approve the Brownfield request. Under the Brownfield request, the developer is asking for reimbursement of certain funds and monies that are being used to redevelop this property. I don't have the exact amount in front of me, about $100,000, I think.
It's 94 in the plan.
Okay, so 94 in the plan. And the way it would work would be that essentially TIP money would be used to pay back the developer for that amount. And that's TIP money that not only would come from the city, but also from the DDA board. And you will be seeing that again when you reconvene back into the DDA. But to walk you through the plan, I'll turn it over to the developer.
I'll turn it over to Jerry. Attorney.
Thank you all. And I'm an attorney, but I'm a finance guy at heart, so thank you for the opportunity to present today. This is a project, I've had several people try to reach out and try and figure out a way, how can we help support redevelopment of this site.
Mr. Balka, could you just interfere for a second? Could you state your name?
Yes, thank you. Jared Balka with Warner and Carlson. This Cedar Springs is not a core community, and I won't get too far into the weeds, but there's a limited toolbox that is available to help support projects like this. And especially with our good friends at the state, Mr. Womack has also rolled up his sleeves to help try and advance the effort to get some kind of incentives to help redevelop this project. The brownfield is a tool that can be used for this purpose. When it comes to brownfield TIF, there are two components, a local component and a state component. And that's your millages, there are local millages, and there are your school millages. In order to get the state on board to support school tax capture, you need to be supportive of the overall project. This particular project, while it's great for the downtown, it isn't their future perfect project, which would be a multi-level, first floor retail, some office, with residential. It's not that, but it is an important piece for downtown. Everybody hopes will add to the vibrancy. So, what's before you is a request for brownfield TIF to help support offsetting some of those additional costs that are incurred with the redevelopment of this project, mainly being demo. As I alluded to earlier, it's not a core community, so under the Brownfield Act, we're limited to lead asbestos abatement, demo, and environmental work. The only one that we have in this case is demo. Glenn and I were just kind of looking at the numbers, and what is included in the plan are estimates. So in talking the plan, it looks like we're going to come in south of what's included in the plan. So we have about 20,000 less, which is great for everybody. Yes, they've found other areas to spend. You're here to answer any questions. Appreciate your consideration. But this it's a sizable investment in this building, and your support is certainly appreciated.
Anyone have any questions?
I have a question, but I want to comment. That building and the community that surrounds it has always been a very social, live music, entertainment, food for this city. And I'm glad to see it's being revamped and put back in work.
Working with Wayne, we've got some residents here, some local individuals who felt the same way and came together and put this project together.
Other questions? If not, I will entertain a motion to recommend the city council to approve the amendment to the Cedar Springs Market Plan for Cedar Springs Ventures LLC redevelopment plan. What is that asking me? Where's the money coming from?
So,
We got tip money for DDA, right?
So it functions in the same way. So as far as the DDA is concerned, there's a tax base level. And then as the years go by and the property increases in value, you, the DDA, gets access to the difference in the tax base and the current tax level. And then you reinvest that back into the community to then further increase the property value. So it's a similar situation, but only on a two building scale. So instead of that money coming to the city or the DDA, it's going back to the developer for $94,000, but potentially less than that.
Increasing that
I believe so.
correct. Yeah, I like to refer to it as the self-fulfilling incentive, right? Mr. McIntyre's group is investing a significant amount of money in this property. level. And the Brownfield Act allows you to capture a portion of that increment to reimburse the developer for eligible funds. So they're going to drive the tax base up through their investment. A portion of that's going to come back to them to reimburse them for these eligible funds.
So that doesn't affect our funds.
It will later on in this meeting, because the DDA board will be asked to approve a pass-through agreement under 9A, which is the DDA agreed to give up its small portion to the developer.
We won't get that from that.
You will eventually, after the developer's paid back if they're up to 94,000. Correct.
But we only get it off.
Yes. Well, the DDA board, you're right now the Brownfield board, if that makes sense.
There's a different
Yeah.
board now.
So it preserves the current base value of the taxes that are being paid on that property now. Depending on when the DDA was established, any increment that's being generated from that DDA now continues to do so. What the pass-through that the DDA will be requested is to allow that increment to flow through to the brownfields to support the project. We do that as an indirect support or direct support from the DDA to support this project.
Mr. Bowman, I have a question about this motion. The motion recommended the city council, as a city council, should we be voting and recommending this?
Well, again, it's up to each individual person. You could recuse yourself now. I'm sorry, you could, what was your form of you? You could abstain now if you want, or theoretically you could abstain later at the city council level.
I just want to make sure that, if, I'd like to make a motion to recommend to the city council the approval of the amendment to the Cedar Springs Brownfield Plan for the Cedar Springs Ventures LLC redevelopment project.
We'll do a roll call on this one. Laura?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
Mayor Hall?
I would abstain on this one because I will be voting yes on it at the council meeting when it comes to us. I don't want any improprieties like this in town. I'm all in favor of this.
Okay. Sally?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
That's what we want.
And then we have, entertain a motion to approve development and reimbursement agreement as presented. Exhibit C to reimbursement worksheet.
Hello.
We have a second.
So while you guys are looking for it, as I understand it, this is simply the roadmap for how it will be accomplished, which you've just approved, essentially showing you where the money's coming from and how it will be redistributed. And I think it also includes the length of time expected to pay back. So it's essentially the roadmap to accomplish it.
Proper language and everything.
So you comfortable with seconding that?
I'll second that. No. Motion, first one.
Okay, we have a motion and second, and we'll roll call on that one as well. Laura?
Yes.
Sam? Yes. Mayor Hall?
Yes.
Sally?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion carries. motion to move back into the DDA regular meeting?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same thing? Sounds like motion carried. And I'll get your chair back over.
Okay, so now we're back in DDA meeting, so we're on unfinished business, 8A, a motion to approve and recommend the budget to the city council.
What page is that on?
I don't think I've got a
Two,
page.
send a separate email on that.
Two gives a breakdown, so.
Yeah, this is a pretty simple budget, so I just put it inside the agenda. And I, of course, sent you guys an email previously about this. I only had one DDA member
You don't see it.
contact me to indicate what their thoughts were. And I have included that part into this budget. And
I got a question.
Sure.
Do we need to amend this at all to add in a cost to empty the flower boxes and put new dirt in there?
Yep, so this board's not aware yet, but there's ongoing discussion about the need to remove the soil out of the current flower boxes and to replace it with new soil. And then later on, use the $1,500 that's been allocated for flowers to create a uniform system of flowers throughout the flower boxes. A price quote that I just got today, or yesterday, was $1,080 for replacement of all the soil. And so, yes, you can add that into the budget as part of the additional $2135 that is left over at the end of this budget. But I will indicate to the board that I'm trying to identify sources within the city's budget to do that as well, but I cannot guarantee that that would be available. So it's possible that you would have $1,500 allocated for flowers, but it would have to be put into the soil that currently exists, or we may have to find another funding source at a future date, including your fund balance.
Does city council still have in their budget for, community environment or community beautification?
Yes, and there is some funding left over from the Christmas decorations, because thankfully, due to some members of the community, we were able to do that very cheaply this past year. So I'm hoping that there's money left over.
We had some budget money left over from last year, too.
This board also has some money left over from its budget. So I cannot promise the city can do it. I'm trying, but this board could allocate $1,000 towards that in this upcoming budget.
My question, moving up from the flower box, we haven't discussed the banners and signs hardware at all, and that's our biggest budget item in your recommendation.
Yep, so I, again, wasn't contacted by anybody from the DDA. I'm trying to forge a path with little policy leadership. So I know it's something that the DDA board had discussed in the past, and I did get some quotes. Actually, I feel a little silly, I didn't bring that in for you guys to look at. So if you give me 1 second, I've got it on my desk.
This budget, whenever we expend, or some of this stuff will not be expended, so there will be additional funds, ultimately left over, because with this one, at the end of the signs fall on this.
Well, we had allocated to parking last year, so I do believe we have money in the budget from last year that would, to parking, and that was actually gonna be one of my questions on this. We have $5,000 for the second Maple parking lot, but I know budget for parking was one of our high priorities in maintaining those, and that's one of my concerns with this large budget item is that that's gonna be taken away from any maintenance or repair of the existing parking lot.
This budget never goes away, or the amount of money you capture, whatever we save from this year, let's say, budget until June 29th, stays in the DDA. It doesn't reflect back to the general fund.
So I missed the conversation while I was out of the room, but I'm passing the catalog along. It's got 3 pieces of fabric on it. The digital vinyl on the top would be the cheapest, and we would be able to do that one easily with the 60 banners and hardware for the budgeted amount, probably less than the budgeted amount. And I know this is ongoing conversations I've had just in the last couple of days with the banner company. So it's an option that's being being presented. Of course, I also put down potential for public art. I've had several people discuss putting a mural up somewhere in the city, and this would be partial funding for that. You'd have to look for matching money. I missed the conversation about the parking lot.
Well, just briefly to review, not that I wouldn't be in favor of any of these things, but one of our high priorities was maintenance and repair of the parking lots that are already in existence. And my concern is that by dedicating one of our largest budget sections to kind of a whole new thing without a lot more information, that we're kind of taking away from that goal a little bit. I think this is worthy, but this might be a down the road, and, in my opinion, goal versus addressing some of those other concerns. And we have some parking money left over from last year too in the budget, as I recall.
For parking lots specifically?
Well, repairing, maintaining those, at least our contribution to the existing parking lots. A lot of those are gravel, they're not lined, they look like. Can I say that again?
And so I don't have your current year budget in front of me, so I don't know whether that was in there or how much would be in it. But, so this board is aware, the city council is looking to install a new parking lot on the southwest corner of that Second and Maple area. Now, the total cost of that parking lot is approximately $70,000. It is within the DDA area, and I thought the DDA might want to contribute something to it. The city council obviously is going to be doing the heavy lifting, but every little bit helps.
Right. I see that that is there as well, and that, in my personal opinion, is absolutely appropriate. My concern is the $5,000 for Anderson Hardware's now, which has, I think, is within our scope, but hasn't really been a priority. I don't think the board has expressed that as of yet, from what I've seen. Not that we wouldn't, but.
Well, so this is the perfect opportunity for the board to discuss what is a priority that they could spend $5,000 on. Or up to $7,000, because you have $2,000 left over.
Which one of these, are you thinking is going to last the longest and not fade and look like junk after a year?
Yeah, so obviously the most expensive is going to be the Sunbrella one,
Umbrella.
would be the most expensive and probably the longest lasting.
And what are they saying as far as years on this? Because I know what my Sunbrella awning looks like, and my Sunbrella furniture on my porch.
Yeah.
After,
So, of course, the salesperson indicated to me that they expected 5 years out of the vinyl. Yeah, I'm thinking closer to 3 to 5. And then 5 to 7, I think, 5 to 8 on the other two.
What's the material of the ones that you had? They're 10 plus years old.
They're a fabric of some kind. They're not the vinyl. But of course, the other benefits of the vinyl is that you can do essentially full digital printing on it. So you can do a highly customized version of what you want to appear like, versus the other ones which are more of a standardized, pre-formatted, unless you want to pay a significant amount of extra money. And again, I know this is first impression. You guys haven't had the opportunity to look at it, but I wanted to present an option with an estimate of what it would cost.
And if we earmark it, we can spend it later on something else if we vote to, right?
You would have to do a budget amendment, but yes.
So, in personal experience, my daughter lives downtown. Banners and things like that are not going to draw people into the city. I think a mural, I commissioned it, had a few artists get involved in it. I think that would be amazing because people in downtown, they seek them out. You know, I personally think a mural would be awesome. That's just my personal opinion.
Just clarification, so you downtown Grand Rapids.
Downtown Grand Rapids, yeah.
I would donate the side of my building to do it. You could see it from the brewery pretty easily and coming into town.
I'll donate mine too.
Yep. And the city has the building next door, which internally we've talked about. And there's also the building out at the staging area, which would less be downtown, but still be in the DDA area.
So I wonder if we could reach out to Kendall. There's got to be some art students that have a need to do something like this, maybe.
Yep. Now, I put a little bit of research into it, and you're probably looking at closer to 10,000 for a mural. But there are obviously options and ways you can use a lump sum like 5,000 to then get to 10,000.
I got a quote on the side of my building, it was 5. So, he told me between 3,000 and 5,000, and that's a local gentleman here in town that does the ones at the school.
Well, so obviously the next step, if there was money made available in this budget, would be to start putting feelers out, and a committee would probably have to be formed to incorporate what kind of mural you're looking for, whether it had to be locally based or, whatever the artist wanted. Then, get a feeling for what it's going to cost.
The general statement for the cost of paint,
I would do too.
just to get your name out there. And say that-
I only caution because I hear that every time we do something, contact the high school, they'll have some kidding, never get interest.
Kendall's different though. These guys are on the track that they want to become superstars in their field. They need exposure.
So if we approve this budget like this, times day, we can take that 5,000 and push that into parking lots and flower pots. We can move it around. This is just a general path, right?
Yes, you'd have to have a separate later on motion to change it. But yeah, for the time being, this is the guide map for how I'm going to start working towards spending the money.
Obviously, we don't have that handy, but I think we need it. For the next meeting, we've got to have a snapshot of what we have left over before, but.
Yeah, part of the problem is that we're not done allocating all the snow removal costs towards last year's budget.
On last year's budget, we have $6,616 set aside for parking lots with slash signs. So
there's some.
We have 6 grand.
and then you have street signs of 6,616 too. Also.
Well, so something that we could do is come back next month with an estimate for how much money we left over for resurfacing a parking lot, if that's something that you're interested in doing.
Well, again, that was my concern. Some of those things are going to be large capital expenditure, and I think the discussion last year was that we intended on having some of that left over to be able to do some of those things. And I'm a little concerned, there's nothing really for parking outside of a contribution to the one at Second Maple Lane if we're trying to build a pot to do something like a resurfacing or a minimal repainting.
Well, the city itself has, I think, 5,000 set aside for resurfacing of the parking lot behind B&B Beauty Shop. So if this body has $5,000 to $6,000 between those couple of line items, between the city and the DDA, you could resurface 2 parking lots.
Well, the big one's the one behind Jose's too, that would be.
That one's going to be a fire station soon.
Well, true, but there's going to be a new, hopefully one south of that.
There will be.
Yeah, there will be.
That's my concern, is that we're saving towards that.
Well, that's going to take, yeah, part of the fire station.
And what about the potential for a parking lot at the CDT if the existing fire barn is removed?
That's up in the air yet.
Oh, the current fire barn location? Yeah, we haven't, fire barn, we haven't decided what to do with that building yet, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 parking spots will be allocated there.
Yep.
And then these would be for fire members.
That lower lot there where the old library sits on right now, that's also our underground retention. So there's I think over $100,000 just into that.
Yeah, it's an expensive part of the project.
There will be a parking lot there in front of the village. For the fireworks. So we will have
So we should have quite a bit of parking lot and street sign money left over from last year.
I'm hoping so. Unfortunately, Ms. Falcon is out of the office today, so I think they